Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mark and I thank you so much for coming by today. I realized the other day that I've never actually done a formal introduction video to share with you who I am and what I do and why I started a YouTube channel in the first place. Some of you that are familiar with the channel already know a lot of information through the videos that I've presented and the conversations I've had sharing anecdotes and just experiences from my own career in my own life. But I've never done a formal introduction video before, and I've certainly never explored this vlog style format too much. I may have done some clips and some short pieces in the past, but you might not know this. I'm extremely camera shy and I don't like being in front of a camera. I like being behind the scenes. I used to do set design for theater, and as much as I love acting and performing, that's not something I ever wanted to do on stage. I liked being behind the scenes, painting the sets and creating the experience for the actors to play into. But as a musician, I spent years playing on stage in bands and having a great time with that. So I think being with other people and being behind an instrument is a lot different than sort of talking to a camera or being on a stage and performing as an actor or something like that. Anyway, I wanted to present this video today as an introduction and just say hello and welcome new viewers to the channel. And I hope you find some of the older videos entertaining and informative. What I do is I typically create a video that has a conversation and some artwork and try to bring it all together. And the idea is to motivate and hopefully just get people to experience a more fulfilling creative journey, I guess is the best way to say it. I've run into so many people throughout my career and throughout my experiences in teaching and so forth that seem to really need that boost of confidence and that relation to somebody who understands what they're going through artistically and can even just try to inspire or motivate or just give them a little fire under their seat just to keep going with their career in art, or even just as a hobby, just to go one step further and say, hey, this is something that I love to do, and you're that person that's pushing me to do it more. I go through it almost every day when I talk to people about creative stuff, and it's fun for me. I love it. It's what I do. I'm really just passionate about creativity and art and music, and I just, if somebody's interested, I will talk their ear off about it. So what's my background? Well, I've been a graphic designer and illustrator for about 30 years, basically starting right out of high school. Back in middle school and high school, I used to be that guy that the administrators and teachers would come to design posters and paint murals. And I loved that. I loved that exposure. I loved being in that sort of, to me, it was sort of the corporate style when you're working with teachers and administrators. You're not working with kids and, your peers. You're working with people that are older than you and they trust you. And it gave me a huge sense of confidence to be able to put, if we had a band concert and I did the cover for that band concert, it gave me a tremendous amount of confidence and pride in the work that I was doing. And it taught me a lot because I had to be serious and take these projects seriously. As a younger kid, my dad was a science professor, and in the summers he would bring me to his office. So, I wasn't home alone, and he would put me in his back office while he taught summer school, and his office was filled with all kinds of crazy stuff. He had skeletons and animal skulls and things that you would draw from in an anatomy class or something like that. He taught anatomy and physiology, so he had all this stuff around. And as a kid, I would go back there and I would just draw all the time. That was my fun thing to do. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have, Walkmans and all that stuff back then. So you didn't have anything to entertain yourself unless you had a book or a sketchbook. And that was where I loved drawing the most. It was sort of a dark office in the back, just full of stuff. And, you could draw anything. So that was my first exposure to sort of like still life drawing and even partial life drawing. I was fortunate because my parents recognized my love of art when I was a kid, and they sent me to an art school, which was in the next town over. It wasn't really an art school. They had art classes. I was really young. I was probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11 years old when they sent me over there. And it was a still life drawing class. And it was all 50 and 60-year-old people. And I was this little kid. And we were drawing chairs and vases and flowers and rocks and things like that. And it was fun and I loved it. But the teacher of that class kind of saw that I was not being challenged enough and that there was more I could probably be, given that would challenge me more. So she pulled me out of that class and brought me next door to a class that had a lot of younger people, and these were people in their teens and 20s, and I felt much more comfortable and related to these other students more. But it was a life drawing class, and we had a live model, a nude model. And so at that age, drawing a nude model was pretty intense for me. But I loved it because I felt I had to kind of hide my shock and amazement at seeing, a real live nude model. And, this little boy just like, oh boy, what am I in for here? And I remember I took the drawings home after that first life drawing class, and my parents were furious. They were just like, you shouldn't be drawing this stuff. This is inappropriate. And so they ended up pulling me out of that class. That was okay, because by the time I got out of high school, actually my last couple of years in high school, my art teacher sent me to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, had art classes. And they had these classes for high school students that you could go in on, I think it was like a Tuesday or something, and you could take these college level courses while you're in high school. And me and another student, we would go in and take these classes, and it was a blast. We had such a great time. We got to do, again, life drawing with a live nude model. We did still life drawings. We would go out into the building and find a space and draw that space. And I learned so much in those last 2 years of high school that when I went to art school, I felt like I was already sort of ahead of the game. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I got to college, so I toiled between graphic design and illustration, and I ended up becoming an illustration major. And for years I was an airbrush illustrator, doing a lot of photo retouching. This is after college, and it wasn't much fun. It was a lot of grudge work. You just, you get all these pictures of people and you have to remove crow's feet, stray hairs, maybe a birthmark or something. And so I learned how to adapt colors to photographs and things like that. And this, again, was before computer technology, so I didn't have access to Photoshop and all that. But when that stuff did come along, and we had Quark Express was the design program, Photoshop, Illustrator, Streamline, and I think it was PageMaker, and all these different programs, I sunk right into those programs, and I taught myself everything. And I went head deep into it, and I loved it. It was fantastic. And so that opened a door for me for graphic design. And that's when I stepped into that world. What I didn't realize back then was I had a huge advantage over other designers, because graphic designers typically are good with layouts and typography and things like that, which I was good at, but I also had the ability to draw. And that was what gave me a huge advantage over other designers, was that I could sit in a meeting and draw a sketch of what we were talking about on the fly and present that to marketing. And they just really ate that up, because normally the designers would have to take, a week to get sketches and comps ready, where I could do it on the fly in the meeting and say, hey, is this what you're talking about here? What do we think about this layout? And they'd be like, oh my God, this is what we need. So that really took me into my career, and I was able to get some fantastic jobs and some fantastic opportunities working for huge companies, doing some great work. And I worked with some amazing designers and some creative leaders. And boy, that just took me throughout my career. And the illustration aspect allowed me to do image editing. I could do editorial stuff and cartoons. I could do, all kinds of just wonderful things. And having that airbrush background only added to using Photoshop and things like that, where if we had a product photo, I could touch up that product and make it look really high-end for the ad or whatever we were working on. So anyway, that's my background as far as what I've been doing as a career as an artist and an illustrator. It's one of those things. As a modern designer, though, things have changed a lot. Back when I was younger, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have stock photos, we didn't have any of the resources, especially in getting a job. Getting a job was really tough back then, because you had to cold call people from your house. You had to use your landline phone and call somebody to see if they would hire you or if you could get an interview. I remember going up and down the streets in Boston, dropping off my resume at design agencies, literally taking the elevator up and walking up to reception and saying, hey, I want to drop my resume off to somebody. It was really challenging back then. But there was something about the old phrase, hitting the pavement and knocking on doors, because it was a one-on-one contact. You were right in the face of the people that you were actually going to be working with. And you could get that immediate dynamic, and they could get a feel for you. If you're passionate and you're excited about it, then they would read that and they would say, why don't you come in and we'll try you out for a month and see how it goes. We'll do a freelance test for you. And that's how a lot of the jobs I got were through contract and freelance. And some of the full-time jobs came just specifically from cold calling and just walking in and saying, hey, I want a job. And somebody says, okay, I like your tenacity. I like the fact that you're here and you're knocking on my door. But again, modern designers, it's a whole different game. When you try to get a job nowadays, you have to fill out an application online. You have to submit it among thousands of other applicants, and your application goes into an algorithm and is sorted out by words and key phrases and things. And, you know, the hiring people, the human resource people, they're only seeing what gets fed to them from an algorithm. And it's crazy that software is dictating who gets seen by an HR person and who doesn't get seen. And I don't like that. I don't like that style at all, because you're not getting that human element anymore. It's very corporate. It's very machine oriented, and it's not what I'm used to. So it's very hard to just get a break these days. My experience working full time as a corporate designer, I always loved the cubicle or office space I worked in. I liked having that that freedom to sort of go in and just be myself in an environment that's established, and it was always great for me. But in contrast, being a freelancer or a contractor is a wonderful experience too. You have the freedom of working at home or going into an office that you only have to be there for a short time or a few weeks or months or whatever. And, you know, for me, that was always great as well. But the downside is that when you work for a corporation, they pay you a paycheck every week. You get benefits, you get insurance. As a contractor, you have to chase your money, and you have to be the accounts payable and accounts receivable person. And you always have to go out and drum up new work for yourself. Networking is huge when you're a contractor. And at my age now, I'm getting a little too old to be pounding the pavement again. It's tough. So when I get a good client, I try to hold on to them as much as I can. There's just so much that goes on in the day-to-day life of a contract designer or even a full-time designer with a company. But most of it is just day-to-day, and it's routine, and it's work like anybody else. You know, it's not fun. It's work. And they don't call it, hey, let's go to playtime. They say, hey, let's go to work. You know, my independent projects that I do for myself, for example, this YouTube channel, those are born from other things. Those come from when you get home at the end of the day and you say, geez, you know, I really want to have an outlet for my creativity, my true creativity. I don't want to design PowerPoint presentations or, you know, boring white pages or layouts or anything like that. I want to do something fun for me. And that's what YouTube has been for me. It's an opportunity for me to create the work that I love to do, the work that is exciting for me and fun. And if I make mistakes or if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter, because it's just for me. So what got me into doing a YouTube channel? Well, one day I was out there just looking for some information. I don't even remember what it was. I think I was looking for sketchbooks or something. What was the best sketchbook to buy? Because I'd always bought the same basic white sketchbooks from AC Moore or the art stores in town. And so I was looking for some reviews on different sketchbooks, and I came across a couple of YouTube channels that had some good information. So I found that, oh, there's people out here talking about art supplies and products and techniques. I think I should explore this. So I started watching all the different YouTube channels of artists and things like that. But what I found was I was looking for certain information, and either I wasn't able to find exactly what I was looking for, or I was finding information from people that really weren't experienced in the field. Young people especially were coming on YouTube and talking about products that they really didn't even know how to use, that they were using incorrectly, or they were giving advice on that I completely disagreed with and said, no, this is not the right product for that medium or something, and maybe they should be using something else. So I did come across a couple of other channels of some older folks that I was really taken aback by. Steve Mitchell at the Mind of Watercolor was one of them. He had a channel that I just sort of watched and was like, wow, this guy really knows his stuff. And another one is Lindsay at the Frugal Crafter. These people have been doing this for a long time, but they've been doing art and design, and they've been in their careers for years, and it shows in the work they do on YouTube. And there's a whole bunch more. Marty Owings over at Owings Art, he's another one. These are people that have really, you know, been in the trenches, and they know the field. They know art, they know design, they know crafting. And I felt like those were the people that I was sort of aligned with. And then that was the day I said, you know what, if those guys can do it and they're older like me, maybe I should try it too. So I put out my first video, which was it's a terrible little video. Trust me talking to you like this is a huge, huge advancement from where I started from. So I'm proud of the experience I've gained doing the YouTube stuff, and I enjoy doing it. But I still see those young people out there that I originally saw that really, you know, didn't know what they were talking about, but they had thousands and thousands of subscribers, and they were fun, and their editing styles were you know, kitschy, and they had that sort of youthful trend thing going. But I just kind of saw that and said, you know, there's got to be more. There's got to be room for people who are educated and really know what they're talking about and have experiences that they can share. And I said, you know, that's where I think I fit in. And finding a place to fit in YouTube is not easy these days. And I'll tell you, I don't know how or why I'm here and still doing this, but here I am. And so I'm grateful for anyone watching and enjoying this. If you like this, I'm really happy. And I did a video about criticism and negativity, my last video. And I talked about how some viewers, you know, can present negative opinions about what you're presenting. I've had people call me condescending and other names and things like that. And it's interesting because when you put yourself out like this and you talk to a large community of people, you know, you're subjecting yourself to criticism, and some people are going to love it and some people are going to hate it. And, you know, I'm just trying to be myself and trying to do what I do and share that with people. And if people don't like that, then that's okay. I don't mind if you don't like what I do or what I say or how I look or anything. It doesn't matter to me, because I'm just being myself, and I'm being honest to myself, and I'm just presenting something that I enjoy and I'm passionate about, and that's why I'm here. And I hope you like this kind of stuff. Again, this is my formal introduction, which I've never done. And I just want to say thank you to anyone who's out there watching this and enjoying this and maybe taking something away from, you know, the conversations that I present. That's the whole point of this, is to just try to motivate people to be positive and inspired, to be passionate about their artwork and their creativity, whether you're painting or drawing or playing a guitar or even just, you know, tapping your fingers on the desk. Doesn't matter. If you're being creative, then that is a huge thing in our universe, our creative universe, because it keeps it going. You tapping on the desk, somebody in your room next to you, if you're at school, somebody at the desk next to you or at work, one person's going to love hearing your tapping and they're going to join in and tap themselves, while the other person on the other side is going to be like, oh, cut it out, knock it off. I don't want to hear you tapping. There's always going to be fans and there's always going to be critics. So my point of view is just ignore them both and do what you love to do, because that's what I do. I mean, that's how I go through my life. And I'm really happy with the choices that I've made in my career. Some have been mistakes and some have been, you know, very lucrative for me, but I consider them all blessings and all learning experiences. So anyhow, I really hope this was an informative video to present myself and my background and who I am. And thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care and God bless.